What's up, guys? Welcome to the Fantasy Addiction Network. Today we are talking Week 16 start-sits for the quarterback position. Most of you out there, this is your championship week. This is the most important week. Got to get this right, so I'm going to try to help you guys make those ever-important start-sit questions, choices here, and I'll lead you guys down the right path. Now, I know we're about a week away from Christmas. A lot of people are celebrating. Holidays this time of year can be incredibly stressful, trying to get everything done for work and spend time with family. So if you only have a minute, I will quickly run down my 5 starts of the week. We'll start with 5 is Matt Ryan, 4 is Dak Prescott. Caveat there, assuming health. If he doesn't play, obviously that doesn't work. Number 3, Ryan Tannehill. Number 2, Russell Wilson. And number 1 on the week is Jameis Winston. And then the 5 quarterbacks that I'm looking to sit this week include Baker Mayfield, Mitch Trubisky, Sam Darnold, Gardner Minshew, and Josh Allen. All right, so let's go as we normally do, starting with our starts of the week. We'll do number 5, Matt Ryan versus Jacksonville. Jacksonville, 8th in fantasy points allowed over the last 5 weeks, 11 on the season. This is a waning Jacksonville defense that really hasn't been good all year, but has been pretty poor against the quarterback and the wide receiver, especially after losing Jalen Ramsey about midway through the season. Last week, we saw Matt Ryan do well against the 49ers defense. Granted, the 49ers defense was a bit banged up, but even on a healthy day for Jacksonville, their defense is nowhere near the level of the 49ers right now. And Julio Jones seems to be Julio Jones again. After having that nuclear week, Matt Ryan's like, oh yeah, that's right, I have Julio Jones. Hooper definitely still recovering from an injury, but he looked to be a bit better last week as well. So I think this is pretty simple in a game that has a decently high over-under. I think Matt Ryan continues to play strong in this one. If you have, like, say, Josh Allen or Matt Ryan, I'd be starting Matt Ryan this week versus Jacksonville. All right, let's jump to number 4, looking at Dak Prescott playing the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, again, the caveat for this one, right now, we're not too sure what's going on with Dak Prescott. News came out today that the MRI that he had done reveals no structural damage. I believe it's in his shoulder that they're looking at, but he's in pain right now, so we'll see as the week progresses. If it's looking like Dak isn't going to play, then I would just replace this with Carson Wentz. I like both players in this option, but man, this would really suck for the Cowboys if Dak Prescott can't play this week against the Eagles in probably the most important game on the season now. They win this one, they make the playoffs. If they lose, pretty likely that they won't. So for Dak's sake, for the Cowboys' sake, we're hoping that he plays. If he does, Philadelphia is horrible against fantasy quarterbacks, and their offense is finally scoring points. The recipe for a shootout is you take 2 defenses that aren't above average, and then you put both of those teams in a must-win game. That is how a shootout typically starts. So I'm looking for this to be a high-scoring affair between the Cowboys and the Eagles. Assuming health, I would love to have Dak on my fantasy team this week, carrying me to the fantasy championship. Okay, number 3. We're staying in the flames here with Ryan Tannehill versus New Orleans. On the year and in the last 5 weeks, New Orleans has allowed the 12th most points to fantasy quarterbacks, so definitely in the upper echelon. New Orleans, it's a very hard team to read right now after basically having no defense versus the 49ers and then just absolutely demolished the Colts this last week. With Breeze playing lights out and putting both of these high-powered offenses, which both the Saints and the Titans are. When you pit 2 high-powered offenses against each other in a must-win game for both teams, similar story to the Eagles and Cowboys, I like this to turn into a shootout. I think you're fine starting both Breeze and Tannehill in here. I didn't put Breeze in my list because I figure at this point you're probably starting Breeze, but I would definitely start him as well. But if you have Ryan Tannehill, he's gotten you to this point, I would just ride him one more time. All right, number 2, Russell Wilson versus Arizona. Now, Arizona is 17th in fantasy points allowed over the last 5 weeks, but they're number 1 on the season, so they've had a couple good weeks now, but they faced some less than stellar options. I think Russell Wilson looks like he finally kind of had a rebound last week after having a few down games. and now he gets to face the number 1 defense on the year in quarterback points allowed. It doesn't hurt for Wilson that Tyler Lockett looked like he is fully healthy and back. I think the Cardinals have a little bit of momentum, and I actually like the Cardinals to score a decent amount of points in here. Even though Seattle's defense has been pretty good over the past couple weeks, I think that this will keep the game going enough that there will be scoring on both sides of the ball, and I really like Russell Wilson in this one. Again, if you have him at this point, he's probably done enough to get you to the championship. I think he does enough to keep you as the favorite going into this final week. But then number 1, obviously this doesn't mean that I would start him over guys like Lamar Jackson or Deshaun Watson, but of the players ranked 5 and below, Jameis Winston, you have to start him. He plays the Houston Texans this week on Saturday. Houston is giving up 2nd most points to the quarterback in the last 5 weeks, and they're 3rd in points allowed on the season. So yes, there's a caveat here. Jameis lost Evans a few weeks ago, and he lost Chris Godwin last week, but he still has Brashad Perriman, who scored 3 touchdowns last week. And then he also has 2 really good tight ends in O.J. Howard and Cameron Brate. So I look for the tight ends to be used a lot more on this one. Justin Watson is an interesting guy as well. Not someone I'm relying too much on for fantasy, but I think he ends up having a pretty decent game. Just Jameis has been throwing so many touchdowns and throwing so many yards. It's impossible to bench him right now, especially going against a team that loves to give up points to the quarterback position. If you have Jameis Winston, I'm just going to ride the hot hand to the fantasy title. All right, now let's look at our sits on the week. Baker Mayfield versus Baltimore. Baltimore is giving up the 2nd least points to the quarterback position in the last 5 weeks, and they're 30th on the year. So I'm not sure if this one needs too much of an explanation, but if you're trying to trust Baker versus Baltimore this week because of the fact that they beat Baltimore earlier, I don't think that's what we want to trust right now. That was kind of a fluke game. I don't think the Browns can do much at all. That team is really turning into a dumpster fire. It looks like the team is turning on Freddie Kitchens. We're hearing rumors of Odell Beckham wanting out. Landry was yelling at Kitchens on the sideline. This just doesn't seem like the team environment that I'm really wanting to trust any starters this week, especially going against Baltimore, who are trying to lock down that number 1 seed for the playoffs and get that ever important home field advantage. So I'm trying to avoid all Browns this week. Okay, Mitch Trubisky is my 2nd sit this week. He's been red hot over the past couple weeks. He's been playing pretty good. I mean, last week he played well, even though for a fantasy perspective he didn't have too many points scored against the Packers. But Mitch has been playing better. However, Kansas City is the best team against the quarterback in the last 5 weeks, and they're pretty average on the season, coming in at number 17. Chicago was eliminated from the playoffs, and there was even some rumors from Matt Nagy that Mitchell Trubisky and the rest of the starters wouldn't even be playing in this game. So I don't know how much motivation they're actually going to have going out here. Yes, it is in Chicago, but if anything, that would just lead to it being a lower scoring game. I don't trust Mitchell Trubisky in this one at all. Try to find another option. Another guy, Sam Darnold versus Pittsburgh this week. Pittsburgh has been playing lights out against the quarterbacks. Last week, if you started Darnold versus Baltimore, he did decently in garbage time, but garbage time typically indicates that the other team is blowing you out, and Pittsburgh isn't blowing anyone out. So in a likely low-scoring affair, I look for the Steelers to get a lot of turnovers and sacks in this one, and I'm not going to rely on Darnold at all. Okay, another guy here, Gardner Minshew, actually has a pretty good matchup against Atlanta. They're number 11 in the last 5 weeks for points allowed to the quarterbacks, 5 on the season. So it's a pretty good matchup, but I'm still hesitant. Here's why. So, like I said, he has a good matchup, but last week he also had a good matchup versus Oakland, and he did very little with it. DJ Chark is still dealing with his injury. At this point, we don't know whether Chark is going to play, and even if he does, there's no guarantee that he's going to be playing at 100%. So I'm not a huge fan of Gardner Minshew in this one. Atlanta has also been much stronger against the quarterback in the past couple weeks. They held Breeze to a low score. They also shut down Jimmy Garoppolo last week. So I just don't want to bank my fantasy championship on a unproven guy like Gardner Minshew at this point. Even if he has a good game, I don't think you're going to be kicking to yourself for it because there's enough good options out there. Just avoid Gardner Minshew if you can. And last, bigger name, but this is the 3rd week in a row that we've recommended benching Josh Allen. In the last 2 weeks, it's panned out. I think this is the third week, and just a really unfortunate way to end the season for fantasy, because Josh Allen had actually been a really good fantasy asset over the course of the season, but he just got thrown into the gauntlet here, and it doesn't get any prettier this week facing New England. The last time he played New England, I don't even think he had double-digit points for quarterbacks. This is just not the matchup that you're looking for in the championship week. You want to avoid potential duds at every position possible, and I think Josh Allen has a high likelihood of giving you a dud. So that was my start sits for the quarterback position for the week. If you guys have team-specific questions or there's any players that I did not name in this video, feel free to comment down below and I will respond with advice for your team, helping you guys get those fantasy titles. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe for more content, and we will see you in the next one.